Hi everyone, and welcome to our Biology Daily Booster number 12 today. Do note that this is again one of those topics listed on the advanced information for both foundation and higher biology. So what we're going to be looking at today is transpiration in terms of the experiment that we can do and the factors that affect it. So first thing, the experiment that we would do to investigate transpiration uses a bit of equipment called a potometer. Now the potometer, quite simply, is what we can see in the diagram. So what we have is our little bit of plant stuck into our little connector here on the left hand side, and then that water flows through this tube, which is a capillary tube. Now it's a very narrow glass tube. So you can see what we've actually got is this little air bubble. So at the very start, what you do is you line up the air bubble in your capillary tube with your zero usually. So if this is our little zero marker, we'd line up our bubble with the zero because there's a little syringe that allows you to move it around. Then what we would do is we would leave our little plant with whatever factor we are investigating, and what happens is over the period of time that it's running, that air bubble is going to move along that little scale closer to the plant, because what's happening is as we're losing water from the leaves of the plant, it's drawing more water up, so the air bubble moves along. All we would do is we'd be taking a measure of how far that bubble has gone in our given time, and then we can calculate the rate as distance divided by time. So let's look at these factors that we could use to investigate transpiration. So these are the factors that we are saying affect the rate of transpiration. The first one is temperature then. So the basic pattern here is that increasing the temperature increases the rate of transpiration. So that's our description of our graph. The reason is that when we've got a higher temperature, then what we're going to see is evaporation is happening at a faster rate. Because that water vapour is then able to diffuse out of the leaf faster, transpiration is going to be faster, because transpiration is the loss of water vapour from the aerial parts of the plant. Factor number 2 is going to be light intensity. So what we find is when we expose our plants to light, then the stomata will open. The stomata are obviously those little pores on the underside of the leaves controlled by our guard cells. But when the plant is in the dark, the stomata will be closed. So what we see is this little pattern of increasing light intensity increases the rate of transpiration, but we hit a point where it's going to level off. So we get this plateau on our graph. The reason for that is that when we keep increasing light intensity, there comes a point when all stomata are open. So when we've got all of the stomata open, continuing to increase light intensity is going to do nothing, because if they're already open, we can't open anymore. So what we find is initially increasing light intensity increases the rate of transpiration because more stomata open and therefore more evaporation of water occurs. However, we hit a point where all the stomata are open and therefore we get that plateau. Number 3 on our list of factors is air movement. So as we've already established, transpiration is the evaporation of water from the plant. So when that water diffuses out of the leaves, it will just be sitting in the immediate area surrounding the leaves. That means we'd affect that concentration gradient between the inside and the outside of our leaf. For diffusion to happen, the steeper the gradient, the faster the rate. So if we've actually got more air movement, so faster wind speeds, that's going to carry the evaporated water away from the leaf and therefore maintain that steeper concentration gradient. So what we find is faster wind speeds leads to a faster rate of transpiration for that reason. Fourth and final factor then is the humidity. So when we're talking about humidity, this is a measure of how much water vapour is present in the air. Now, do go careful here, because if you look at the shape of the graph, this is the one that goes the opposite direction to the others. So when we have a low humidity, so on the left hand side of the graph here, we have a high rate of transpiration because we have a steeper concentration gradient between the inside of the leaf and the outside. So diffusion is going to happen quickly. When we increase humidity, what we're actually saying is that there's a large amount of water vapour present in the air around the plant already. So what we've done is we've made a much smaller difference between the inside and the outside of our plant. So that concentration gradient is much shallower. As a result of that, diffusion is going to be much slower, and that means our rate of transpiration is much lower. So that brings us on to the final part of today, which is to head on over to our little Google form to have a go at the quiz. So don't forget, this gives you an opportunity to check how well you've understood the topics from today and highlight if there's any areas that you do need to revisit before your real GCSE exam. Don't forget to join us again tomorrow for our next Daily Booster.